So before we start the video, I'd like to ask you guys to please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video, as it helps the channel grow. So let's get into it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. We got a new topic on the channel that I want to do. Since the NFL season has come to a close, the Super Bowl is over, and the time for baseball season is here. We're probably about a week away from the first spring training game. I figured I would get on camera and talk about baseball for a minute. Today, we're going to go through the MLB division and see who I picked to finish first in the division and who to finish last. I will be using a multitude of sources for this video, as you can see on the screen. I might disagree with some things that some people are saying. I might agree with some things that people are saying. But ultimately, this is my opinion on who I think is going to finish first and last in every division. Today, we will start with the AL East, man. The tough AL East teams: Yankees, Orioles, Blue Jays, Red Sox, Rays. We're going to rank those teams from, best to worst in their respective divisions. So, without further ado, guys, let's get straight into it. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another presentation with your boy KT. Thank you guys for joining me for this short little presentation, and thank you guys for taking a little time out of your day to spend this 30 minutes of your time with me talking about baseball. Today, like I said earlier, I'm going to go through, each division in the MLB and rank my teams from best to worst. We're going to start with the AL East. As we go forward, we'll go through the AL Central, the AL West, NL East, NL Central, and NL West. I will be using a multitude of sources for my little predictions. If I don't know, I am I wouldn't say like a huge baseball fan, a guy that's going to tell you everything about the little ups and downs of baseball, but I do kind of figure myself to be a pretty good baseball knower. So, hopefully you guys don't get mad at me for picking you guys whatever team you have to finish last. Don't judge me though. So, I got a lot of sources up here. We're gonna go through each one and see what I agree with, what I don't agree with, and just rank the teams here. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, the team, I'm gonna go from worst to best. So, we're gonna start with the worst team in the AL East. Who I think will be the worst team in the AL East. And this is where the first disagreement is going to come in with Pacoda. Now, Pacoda is pretty good with releasing, simulated standings and stuff. They have Tampa Bay finishing fourth. I have them finishing last. And I'll tell you a couple reasons for it. Now, before we get into that, I'm going to bring up the roster here for the Tampa Bay Rays. They did add a couple pieces in the offseason. Ha-Seong Kim is a pretty good shortstop that they added. Can hit for a little bit of contact, possibly can hit for maybe like a handful of home runs. Good speed on the bases, not a bad acquisition. They got that dominant starting rotation, man. That starting rotation is really good, led by Shane McClanahan. That guy is a beast if he's healthy. Ryan Pepiot is not a slouch either. Shane Baz is pretty good. You got Taj Bradley up in there, and they end their rotation with Zach Littell. Now, I have no doubt that the Rays starting rotation plus their bullpen as well, especially with the addition of Gary Clevenger. They just traded for Alex Faedo just a couple of days ago. They got Hunter Biggie last year, who people were really high on here in Chicago as another reliever. And you still got a pretty good closer in Peter Fairbanks. My main concern is the offense. Is the offense going to be good enough to carry this team throughout this division? And on top of that, can this pitching staff stay healthy? Can Shane McClanahan stay healthy the entire season? I doubt it. I don't know where, the star in this lineup is. Yandy Diaz was the best player on that team last year. But compared to other teams in their division, they're going to struggle mightily because they have, I wouldn't say they have like a guy on that team that you just say, okay, that's the guy, that lineup, that's a guy you can build around. They just kind of put a bunch of pieces together that fit. And they lost some pieces too. Randy Arozarena was traded last year. Isaac Paredes is an Astro after he was traded last year. Who else? Dang, who else? My mind is running a blank. They lost a lot of talent last year, though, and over the years as well. They lost a little bit in that starting rotation as well. You could say with Tyler Glasnow going to the Dodgers, even though he barely pitches as well. I like Jonathan Aranda. Junior Caminero is probably going to be pretty good if he, comes up into the big leagues and makes an impact. The last prospect that they had, and I'm not going to mention his name, the last prospect that they had, it didn't really work too well. They got another young prospect coming in, Carson Williams. So I do think that they'll be pretty good, if they stay healthy. Also, I have some reservations about them playing on the road. Once you get the Rays out of Tropicana Field, they turn into a completely different team. So they need to improve that road record a lot. The other team, the two best teams in their division, won on the road. They were much better on the road than they were at home. And once you get the Rays, and it's normal for teams like that, once you get the Rays outside of like their home, their home stadium, bats kind of fall off a cliff. We saw that last year. Another question mark is definitely going to have to be this guy. As a Cubs fan, Christopher Morel can do two things for you. He can be the greatest thing since sliced bread, or he can be absolutely horrible. And, it is, when he's good, he's good. When he's hitting for power, he's really, really good. And he's able to make contact with the ball. Had a strong 2023 season, but his defense and his inconsistent bat is going to cost his team if he's not, disciplined at the plate. Another thing is his fielding, man. His fielding has to get better. And I don't know if left field is, the position for him. I see him more as a DH. They're going to play him at third base. That's what they have him listed. So that's what I'm going to assume he's going to be playing. So, for those reasons, they can't. That starting rotation can never seem to stay healthy. They got some questions as far as start power in their lineup. They got some questions defensively as far as their lineup. And that home record that's taking them away from Tropicana Field seems to do wonders for that team. And whatever team is playing them on the road seems to beat them pretty easily. So, for those reasons, I kind of disagree with Pacoda right there. I think the Tampa Bay Rays will probably finish last in that division. I do think that they won't be horrible. They did win 80 games last year, but I don't think they're going to go any farther than that. I think the Blue Jays are going to be a little bit better. I do think the Red Sox are going to be a little bit better as well. So I have the Tampa Bay Rays finishing last in the AL East. Moving on, I'm going to swap those teams. I'm going to pick the Boston Red Sox. Now, a lot of teams, fan bases are a little frustrated with how the offseason has went. Everybody seems to be going to the Dodgers, man. None more upset than the Boston Red Sox fans. It feels like the Boston Red Sox are stuck in this position where they're kind of mediocre. They're not necessarily all that great, but they're not bad either. Why I think they might finish well next season, and they could be a sleeper team going into that AL East. They made a lot of good acquisitions in the offseason. Walker Buehler, Liam Hendricks is on that team. They got Aroldis Chapman. They re-signed Rafael Devers a couple years ago, or a couple months ago. I'm sorry. Jarren Duran is coming back for another season. He was an all-star last year. Tristan Casas is a really, really good player. I think he can be an all-star this year. They got Rafael Devers. They got Trevor Story. Cedane Rafaela is a young ascending player. So I think, they have a really strong lineup. Masataka Yoshida, while I don't think he's really suitable for the DH role because I don't know if he hits for a lot of power. Again, I'm not too familiar with the Boston Red Sox, but, I don't think he hits for too much power. I do think he is a really, really good option that they have. My main question for the Boston Red Sox is, do they have enough in this lineup and in this entire team to push them past the edge to be better than the Toronto Blue Jays or the New York Yankees? They did add a lot of pieces. None were bigger than Garrett Crochet in this offseason. That guy is a beast. They got him from the White Sox. Don't know why the White Sox traded him for basically nothing at that time. And you don't really give up, top pitchers like that. 26 years old, dude is a beast, a whole beast out there for their starting rotation. The one thing I would say is the health of Walker Buehler is probably going to play a role in this, because past that, I don't really see too many huge names in their rotation. I think their bullpen got better. At the same time, they need a lot of guys to perform up to standards. I feel like if Tristan Casas, can up his production that he did last year, can Trevor Story get back to the level that he was at, in Colorado, Jarren Duran doesn't get in trouble and stays healthy, Masataka Yoshida gets a little bit better. There's a lot of question marks in that lineup. Their catching is probably one of my most concerning things about them, but I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. Ultimately, I do think that the Boston Red Sox will probably be a little bit better. They got a lot of talent on that team. At the same time, though, they're going to have a lot to contend with. As the Blue Jays, I feel like they're just a little bit better. I do see the Boston Red Sox win a lot more games this year. They might go up to, from 81 maybe to like 86, maybe 84. At the same time, I think the Toronto Blue Jays have a lot more talent on their team. I think, the inconsistency of being healthy with Walker Buehler is going to play a role. Guys like Liam Hendricks are probably going to get hurt a lot. And other than the guys that I just named, like Tristan Casas, Rafael Devers, and Jarren Duran, where else is the offense going to come from? Are these guys going to be able to step up and lift this team to be able to compete for a wild card spot in the division? I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. But ultimately, I think I have the Boston Red Sox finishing 4th in that AL East, in my opinion. They do have some top prospects coming though, including, the young Roman Anthony, who's, I think he's second in the organization. Is he second in the organization or second in terms? No, he's second in terms of prospects on the top 100 list. So they do got some good prospects. He's expected to make a debut at some point during the season. They got 2 top 10 prospects, and they got 3 top 15 prospects. So they got some talent. They got talent coming up. So we'll see what this Boston Red Sox team is going to be able to do. Ultimately, I think they still finish 4th in the division, in my opinion. Moving on, I think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to be finishing 3rd in the AL East. Now, the Toronto Blue Jays are another team that's really frustrated with the way the offseason went. Despite that, I think they got a little bit better. Now, they didn't get the best free agents. They didn't get the Shohei Ohtanis. They didn't get the Roki Sasakis. They didn't get the Juan Sotos of the world. But they did make a lot of great acquisitions, man. They made a lot of great acquisitions. None bigger, in my opinion, than Anthony Santander. That guy can hit for a lot of power in the lineup. He adds a different, energy to that lineup. They went out and got Andres Jimenez from the Cleveland Guardians. They still sport a pretty good rotation, and you just added Max Scherzer to that roster. Despite Max Scherzer being a little bit older, he still got some game to him. They sport a lineup that includes, guys like Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Anthony Santander. They still got George Springer. Dalton Varsho can hit for a little bit of contact here and there. I don't think Andres is the best hitter in the world, but he can hit for a little bit of contact here and there. His defense is definitely top notch. They got a pretty good bullpen as they added Jeff Hoffman to be their closer. So they got a lot of talent on this team, man. I think the biggest thing for the Toronto Blue Jays going into this year is, can the Blue Jays, can their starting rotation perform up to standards? I feel like every year their starting rotation lets them down, and they kind of underperform. We saw that last year. Right before, last year, Alex Manoah was probably a really good starter for the Toronto Blue Jays, and then he just fell off a cliff. Jose Barrios hasn't really lived up to that, and at least, as the season goes on, he tends to fall off a little bit. Kevin Gausman gets hurt a lot. But just looking at their lineup, man, and that rotation, if they're able to stay healthy, and they're able to, pitch up to their potential, they can be a really, really good team. They can shut teams down. As for the offense, it's all a matter of who's going to be healthy, and can Vlad, keep up his all. He starts the year hot and then he kind of fades away later in the year. There's been a lot of distractions going on in that organization as well. At some point there was rumors about trading him, or people were making up rumors about he was going to get traded, or maybe he might have been on the market. That hasn't happened. Can Bo Bichette stay healthy? Those are probably the biggest things right there. And can George Springer finally live up to that contract that they gave him? They lost a few pieces. They got better at some positions. I think letting go of Marcus Semien was a really, really good choice. And replacing him with Andres Gimenez is probably an even better choice. This Toronto Blue Jays team could do some damage. At the same time, are they going to be able to compete with the Baltimore Orioles or the Yankees? I don't think so. They could sneak their way into a wild card spot, but I have them finishing third in the division. I think they're a talented team. It's all about that pitching staff living up to expectations. So yeah, I got the Blue Jays, finishing third in that division. All right, we're at the top two now. I'm sorry this video has gone a little bit longer, and if you were looking for a lot more detail, I apologize as well. I'm a casual fan. I like baseball. I'm not going to go in heavy with all the stats and stuff. I just go by basically what my eyes see, and ultimately I'm a Cubs fan. I don't watch other teams heavy like that. Most of the time I can't, but I try to sneak in and watch other teams as well if I can, if I can catch them. Baseball is good when you sit down and watch it. There are a lot of good teams in baseball. This seems to be the sport with the most parity. Unfortunately, I'm just not well versed in a lot of these other teams like I am in my own team in the Chicago Cubs, and I think that is normal. So just a little precursor there. But ultimately, I think the second team in this division is going to be the New York Yankees, man. And I think the Yankees are a pretty good team. They in the World Series last year. Other than the massive choke that they had in the World Series, this team is definitely going to be one of the best teams in the MLB and in the division. Still sporting a really, really good starting rotation. They added some pieces to Devin Williams, really, really, really good relief pitcher coming from the Milwaukee Brewers. Seen him here for a multitude of years as a Cubs fan. They added Mark Leiter Jr. last year. They're getting Max Fried from the Atlanta Braves this year. Carlos Rodon, hopefully he's able to regain his form that he had in Chicago. For the White Sox, don't know why they ever traded him too. I think Marcus Stroman is still on the roster. Luis Gil is still on the roster. These guys are great pitchers. They have a good bullpen. I would say a good bullpen. Jonathan Losagia, Scott Efros, they added a lot more middle relief pitchers as well. Mark Leiter Jr., great setup pitcher. Luke Weaver had a good season last year. And of course, none better than Devin Williams. This guy was a beast here in Milwaukee. So, we know him pretty well. Being Cubs fans, he kind of shuts us down. That's a great acquisition there for that bullpen. Will Warren also is a guy that I'm really interested in. There was a while there that they might have thought about trading him for, I think it was what's his name, Kyle Tucker. So clearly he has some value to him. They did get a little bit better on offense too, even though they lost Juan Soto. They added Paul Goldschmidt. They still have Jazz Chisholm in that lineup. Oswaldo Cabrera was pretty good as well. They still got Anthony Volpe. Not too much of DJ LeMahieu. I'm kind of skeptical about that. Is he going to be able to stay healthy? Jason Dominguez is a pretty good player. They added Cody Bellinger, so that's a pretty good way to replace Juan Soto. He's never going to replace the production that Soto has or the star power. But Cody Bellinger is definitely a good name to have. Left-handed bat, hits with power. Hopefully he can regain that 2023 form. Trent Grisham's still out there. But of course, you still got the big guy in Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton as well. They can both hit for power. They got a lot of versatility on this team as well. There's no reason why the New York Yankees shouldn't, be a really, really good team going into the season. this team is always surrounded in a lot of drama because it's the Yankees and they always start slow. I'm a little worried about Paul Goldschmidt. They kind of just replaced an old third baseman with another old third baseman, and it took him a while last year to get it going. So we'll see how that is going to pan out, but definitely an upgrade over Rizzo last year. I think they signed Carlos Carrasco as well. They signed Tyler Matzik today, or was it yesterday? No, it was yesterday. So they got a few good players going into spring training, and guys are going to be coming up constantly as well. So yeah, I think the biggest thing for the New York Yankees is that the Baltimore Orioles are sitting right there. And that's not even a shade. I think the Baltimore Orioles, even though the Yankees won the division last year, I think the Baltimore Orioles are a little bit better. I feel like they're a little bit more rounded out, and we'll get to that in a minute. I think the Yankees' biggest issue is they start way too slow to begin the year. It takes the Yankees a little bit of a moment, and on top of that, you got to worry about health with Aaron Judge. He's going to miss games, and can they win games consistently because they know Aaron Judge is probably going to miss games. This should be the year that the New York Yankees should be able to go back to the World Series. There should be no reason why they shouldn't be at least the wild card team. If not, they're going to be closely competing with the Baltimore Orioles in that division. Again, it's one of the toughest divisions in baseball. I feel like they made a lot of good moves. Question marks there about the Paul Goldschmidt move because of how old he is. DJ LeMahieu is probably going to be another question mark. Can Cody Bellinger regain that 2023 form? Other than that, I think the Yankees have a really, really good roster. I think they're definitely going to be competing for the division in depth for a long time coming. And finally, the Baltimore Orioles. This team is definitely going to is definitely going to win the division. I think this team is definitely going to win the division. Now they lost talent. They did lose talent. They lost Anthony Santander. They lost what's his name? They lost Corbin Burns as well. At the same time, they still got a pretty good lineup out there in Baltimore. Even with losing, Corbin Burns, they went out and signed Charlie Morton. They got Sir Anthony Dominguez in the bullpen. Pretty good closer. They still got two young stars. A lot of young stars on this team. Adley Rutschman is still there. You still got Gunnar Henderson. Colton Cowser had a really good year last year. They added Tyler O'Neill. I don't think he was on the team last year. They got Dylan Carlson. They got a lot of Heston Kjerstad. That's a guy that's going to be looked at a lot. Jackson Holiday is probably going to have a lot more playing time this year. Hopefully he's improved. Jordan Westberg, Tyler O'Neill, Cedric Mullins. I think Colton Cowser is a really, really good player as well. Ryan O'Hearn. This lineup is full of power, man. This lineup is full of power. I just think that the Baltimore Orioles, they've been really, really working. I think they have a really, really good lineup to where they can keep pace with anybody. Now, their pitching might take a step back because of the loss of Corbin Burns. Grayson Rodriguez is considered to be the starting one. I don't know if I've seen much of Rodriguez, in the previous season. I think I've seen him once before, and I think he was okay. But we'll see. Definitely going to be a team to watch in that division. I just think their offense is just a little bit better than the other team's offense. They carry a lot of power in that lineup with both, Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman, who can hit for bombs. They got good depth at that position with Gary Sanchez as well. Ryan Mountcastle can hit for power. Tyler O'Neill can hit for power. Colton Cowser was really good for a stretch of the season. Ramon Laureano, good depth piece. Dylan Carlson, well-known Cardinal here in Chicago. He was a good acquisition, even though they lost a lot of pitching talent out there. I think they still have enough to be able to keep teams from scoring enough runs on them, and then be able to put runs on teams as well. I think Jackson Holiday will be a little bit better this year, so we'll see. I think they're still probably the best team in that division. I don't think I disagree with Pacoda on that. On that note, they still got some pretty good starting pitchers, man. Zach Eflin, you got Trevor Rogers there, Kyle Bradish. You got some good starting pitchers. Charlie Morton, you added him as well. You got a lot of good starting pitchers out there if they can, put something together. Their bullpen is pretty strong as well. Sir Anthony Dominguez, they got their closer. I don't think they take too much of a step back. I think if I can add a little bit of criticism, I think they lost a little bit more than they gained. At the same time, I just think that lineup is just going to be so dangerous that other teams probably not going to be able to deal with it. Also, they play pretty well against the division as well. They dominated the division last year and going 32-20. They didn't lose too much to where I don't see it changing. But we'll see, man. I think the Baltimore Orioles are still in a really, really good place. If I'm not mistaken, I do think they have another top prospect coming soon. But I'll have to worry about that later. You can see it right here. They got some good prospects coming up soon. But yeah, I think that the Baltimore Orioles, because of that power, because of that lineup, from top down, it's filled with really, really good names. Good defense. Cedric Mullins is still a really, really good player. It's filled with guys that can hit home runs, can hit for power, can hit for content. They got speed, they got defense. I think they'll be fine. I have them winning the division. If you're a Yankees fan and you disagree with that, please put that in the comment section. But ultimately, I have the Baltimore Orioles winning that division. I think they're probably the best team in the AL East. If I had to put a little footnote on this, I wouldn't be surprised if the New York Yankees win that division again now. So ultimately, that was a casuals look into the AL East and how I think it will play out. If you wanted a more in-depth video, I apologize. I'm not the guy that's going to be pulling up WAR for every single player. Their splits on the road and at home. I'm just going to go by what my eyes see and how much teams gained in the offseason. So if there's anything you disagree with in the comment section, please put it down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the videos. It helps the channel grow. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I drop one of these baseball videos. I'm going to try to do this for every division in baseball before the season starts. So we'll see. Some divisions will be more contested than others. So we'll see there. Make sure you guys follow me on social media, as there's bound to be more things popping up about baseball all season. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Add your comment in the comment section, and I'm out. Peace.